Hi there, David Binyachek here. Happy Friday to you. This is a heart-to-heart for leaders who want to or have to really up the performance level, not just of one member of their team, but of their entire team. Raise the floor, raise the ceiling. That's what these next few minutes are about. I want to start off with a question, and I forgive you if this is you because I've done it, but it's around an environment that I think is a huge barrier and can create a lot of stress, undue stress to leaders that are trying to raise the floor, raise the ceiling. The question is this, does your company tend to hire people and then put them in competition with each other, assuming that they have experience in the area that you hired them for, and that's going to make them a top performer, and reward people who can figure out best practice in that new environment by themselves, and maybe cancel or look less favorably apart or start to distance themselves from people that cannot perform at the same level? I I I think that's a ton of environments out there, and I'm not even dishing the leader. I'm not dishing the company. They are well-intended leaders. They are well-intended companies. You see, I've been part of that, where as part of a sales team, I mean, they taught me the accounting system and how to do well on that. They taught me the CRM system and how to capture my sales pipeline, and they just lavished training on me because they wanted to set me up for success. But I think an environment where you hire people and then have them compete and reward those that can figure out a best practice on their own is not the best environment for your company. I want to talk about a 3-step process that actually is going to help you use community to balance the two positives of collaboration, working together, and competition. I don't think competition is a bad thing. It depends what it looks like. And I'm going to give you a couple examples along the way. So step number 1 is communicate. Communicate what? Communicate best practice. Don't assume they know it. I want to brag on OEM car dealerships for a moment. I've had a chance to coach many of them across Western Canada over the last few years. I love working with their people. And one of the things they do well, especially in their sales department, I'm going to be very specific, but this doesn't relate just to sales, but for the OEMs, their sales team have a very well-defined, communicated process of these are the 5, 6, 7 steps that you can do to almost guarantee a sale. If you dare do these things, you're going to see success. I think that for your environment, that process, best practice, exists. OEMs do really well at communicating what that is, and it may change over time, and they'll recommunicate as they adapt to new, world realities and market realities. But I think your environment has that. My question is this: have you communicated to the entire team, or are you measuring people on their ability and their professionalism to, on their own and independently, or with a smaller clique or small group, figure out what that is? You see, I'm going to say that there are a lot of people that could be top performers on your team, but when they're in a part of a competitive environment where they're left alone to compete against other people, it's really hard to ask for help because they feel like it's going to be a notch against them. And it prevents them from doing the one thing that would help them overcome the barriers to doing the things they know they need to do, and to actually start upping their performance to you. So step number 1 on this Friday challenge is communicate best practice process to your entire team. It's a gift. It's a foundation. It doesn't guarantee success. It's only step number 1, but it is a gift to your people. Number 2, coach it. Coach it. We don't always do what we know we should do, or when we think we know what we should do, when we go to do it, we struggle with one barrier or another. I want to give you a second example, and it's ironic because it came this morning. Aside from the speaking that I do, I have a passion for photography. I love photography. I've taught photography, and I help my wife with weddings and various things. And in this kind of lull of traveling to speak to people, I've done some contract photography. And for this one particular company, there's a set of 27 standard images that I need to take when I go out to a client. And the truth is, I'm a good photographer. I'm a really good photographer, but am I perfect? No, I'm not. There are three specific images that I struggle to consistently produce at a level that I'd like them to be. Imagine this. Well, imagine number one, if they just left me to struggle and I didn't ask for help. I have to tell you, I'm human. My original thoughts is, do I need to quit? Are they going to fire me? I don't like these results as part of this. Yeah, the 24 others are good. And yeah, I'm really good with the client, but I suck at this. And that's an over exaggeration. They're okay photos, but they're not at the level that I want. Do I have to leave? You see, in isolation of competition, people tend to disengage instead of engage with the very source for that would be their help. Can you imagine? And I've suggested it to this company because I'm new to them. Can you imagine if they held a 2-hour conference with all their contract photographers across the country, and there's 27 images, and there's some images that I kick butt at, I'm really good at. And can you imagine in that call if the intent was simply for everyone to share their strengths and learn for their weakness? So I got to brag about how I produce these certain shots so exceptionally well. And then I got to hear from people that do exceptionally well at the images that I'm struggling with. And so many times, and I know it's going to be one or two small things that I'm not doing that make a world of difference. A setting here, a setting there, an approach here, a position, an angle. It's going to be simple, but I need an environment where it's safe to ask. At the end of that call, there's a few things that are going to happen. Number one, your collaboration is going to go up. Because people in a safe environment, because you expected it, they're going to feel good about themselves as they share from what they do well, and they're going to go, I got some tips I can try around overcoming this stuff that even though, yeah, I call myself a professional photographer, I'm struggling with it. That should not be a condemnation. Do you know none of us are perfect? Each one of your employees has their strengths and weaknesses. And so create an environment where they can share from their strengths and learn for their weaknesses. And at the end of that, you'd already start to see your entire team's performance start to raise, the collaboration index of your team start to raise. And the third step in this process to raising the bar is then expecting it. I have an equation for motivation. It's want to plus have to. Both of those need to exist to start to see results. You know what? I want to. And the people on your team want to get better. But if they don't have to, it's amazing how procrastination can sit in. It's amazing how distractions can take hold and they really don't get at and using the things that they've learned. And then they start to forget. And then a lot of times the session that you had can go to waste. Expecting it from people says, you know what? What did you learn from today? How can it help you in the area that you thought you were weakest, even though they may not be, about to get fired for that. Their work is okay in that area. It's acceptable, but you want excellence in that area. What did you learn? And what are you going to do over the next month? And let's get together next month and talk about how that worked for you and how that helped you. When we have to, then we tend to apply. And we tend to do. You see, you don't control people. And you can judge people if they're unable to have the discipline to do it on their own. But then you have to judge a large portion of your team because human nature says that if we don't have to, other things become more appealing. And no matter how much we wanted to, we don't. Don't judge them, help them. You don't control them, influence them by the environment that you build. By number one, communicating best practice, and number two, coaching it. And then and number three is expecting it. So here's how that community can help both collaboration. We've already talked about that, but let me talk about competition. I think competition is good. But here's what I'd encourage you to do is I'd encourage you to reward progress instead of necessarily only rewarding absolute performance. There's a cool thing that, yes, there needs to be a certain level to remain in the job. There needs to be acceptable performance. But when you start just saying, okay, here's where you're at today. What did you learn from this session? Where can it take you? And you celebrate 2 steps forward, the same for every person, no matter where they started from. That environment all of a sudden has them look at other people as their source of help instead of their competitors. And they're more likely going to do the things that we talked about to help each other. It's going to be a positive environment. It's going to be an environment of continuous improvement, of growth. You don't control anyone, but you've created, and that's my thing with building capacity workshops, giving leaders the blueprint to build environments that are their best friend in influencing the behaviors that you want. You want to up the floor of performance in your team. Number one, communicate best practice, best process. Number two, coach it. Number three, expect it, where performance is based on their progress from where they were at and not comparing themselves to other people. And you're going to love the results of that. Hope you have yourself a great weekend, and look forward to chatting again. When you do it and you love it, leave a comment. If you do it, you have questions, get in touch. But I know that you're going to love the result of that 3-step approach. Have a great weekend. Cheers.